Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm going to explain how you can design your own switching layout. I'm going to go through the basic principles, put this into practice by designing a simple layout. I'm going to show how to operate this layout, and lastly how you can add extra switching complexity. Let's have a look. So let's get started with the basics. So here you see a schematic of a railroad, and let's chop this down into pieces and see how you can build something like this. This one is fairly complex, so let's start with something easier. Right here, it's one line with one industry. So we have a train here with a locomotive and two cars. It comes in from, let's say, outside of the layout. This can be just around the loop or from a fiddle yard or staging yard, and it can easily back up into this industry as it is a trailing industry and drop off a car. So what to do if you have a facing industry? You can't just drive your train in here and then drop off the cars because the locomotive is stuck behind the cars. So what you're going to need is a runaround. So what the runaround allows you to do is basically get the locomotive and run around the cars, and then that allows you to drop off one or two of the cars that you require to be dropped off at the industry. This industry here can also have an additional trading point right here. So that's actually quite easy to serve that one because the train will just go in here, back up, drop the car off, do a little zigzag, and be on its way again, just like that. So by now you're thinking, how do we get to a more complex design like this? Well, it's just more of the same, and in a condensed version. So if we take these 1, 2, 3 elements, a trailing edge, a runaround, and a facing point, and just squish them all together, then we get something like this. And this is the basics of what you will see in almost every railroad magazine and schematics. So now let's take all these basics, put it into practice, and design our own little fun switching yard. So this is a layout I made for a client of mine. It's on a 1 by 7 foot shelf. Let's just go through the specs because you need a plan. So also at home, first make a plan. It's switching only, industry, and scale. You wanted to use code 55 PECO turnouts. You wanted a wood dealer and a slash sawmill and a food processor on the layout. And the maximum train length would be 4 cars plus a locomotive. So here you see the layout. It's 1 by 7 foot. I already put in several tracks. Let's have a look. This one is intended to be the transfer track where cars will come onto the layout. And then here we would have some kind of runaround situation. And there's enough space here for the locomotive to run around the cars. Keep in mind this is just a rough sketch. The track position will change later. So now you need to add some industries. I've added 2 industries, one here on the bottom, and with the turnout you go to the one on the top. So cars would come in from this track, be set on the runaround, the locomotive would run around, and then come and spot the cars accordingly. So now to add a bit more, he said he wanted a food processor company. That would be this track right here. And it's normally a big company, so I thought let's add a second track with some more spots right here. As the layout is not that long, we'll have to do a switchback. So we'll go back here into this section of track that you could call a kind of lead to get into this facing point track right here. But if you're coming from the yard and this track is full with cars, then there's no space to get the train into to pass this turnout to make the switch back. So we need to add a few more things and spruce this up a little bit because this design is not ready yet. So first off, I added this track right here. This is only a lead to get the train into, to clear this turnout, and then to go in the opposite direction. Secondly, the client also wanted a wood processing or a wood mill facility. I thought it would be nice to have a little track going on the back of the layout, and then the wood mill would fit somewhere around here. And then the bottom track at the yard I extended. It's always good to have some more space to either park cars or perhaps have another industry. So let's look a little bit at the scenery. It wasn't really clear which way we wanted to go, so I just drew in a river in the middle. This is a great feature to create some distance. And then structure-wise, like I said, I would put a food processing in the left top corner. The wood facility, wood mill would be somewhere around here. And then here I already envisioned a small fueling station for your locomotive. So I sent this to the client just to get some feedback to see what his initial thoughts are and how he liked it. The feedback that came back with a few things. He wanted a more urban look. So if we just turn on the scenery, that we dump the river and we got a more urban look. The rest of the track plan he was quite okay with, except this one industry spur here that was down below. He didn't want that. It was too much track. He wanted space for more scenery. As you see, the transfer slash fiddle yard, I moved it up a bit out of the way, and it would eventually disappear after crossing a road behind the houses. The main challenge with a space like this is to get some sense of distance. So just in a space of 2 feet, I created 5 different elements. Let's have a look. The first element here is a row of houses. We pass through that. So the train disappears out of view from that. Then we go over the street, under a viaduct, through the houses again. Finally, we cross the road. That's element number 5. So this should give a great sense of travel and distance while keeping in line with the theme that he wants, which is an urban look. Then it's the same on the way to the lumber mill. Underneath the viaduct, you would cross the street and then go through some patchy land, after which you enter the terrain of the mill. The client quite liked this setup, but there was some discussion on what we can do with the yard and how you would use these items to operate. I will go to that in a little bit. When I woke up the next day, I didn't really feel nice about this transfer fill area. I thought it was a bit squashed in with this fuel, and how would that work exactly? So I changed it up a little bit. So here we come into the final design. You might not notice it, but I moved this road a little bit to the left, creating a little bit more track length in the transfer/fill area, and I moved this fueling location to here. It doesn't really matter where you put this fueling, as there's only one locomotive. The locomotive is never going to be in the way of another locomotive, but here would seem like a logical place. And then I shortened actually this track here quite a bit, and I added a team track or offloading station at the end, good for 2 spots. So the last spot I can imagine you can reserve for tank cars to fill up the fueling station. Then I added more buildings here on the north side to create an urban canyon. This will be, I mean, it might be a bit hard to imagine now, but this will be quite a nice scene with tall buildings on the north, some buildings here, and then the street. So you really have this gutter of urban material where the train passes through and goes under through the viaduct. So now let's look how we're actually going to operate this. And this comes up to the next step as well. What track lengths do you need? So I drew in a train. So this is one train with 4 cars, and this is the locomotive. So as you see, we have 3 spots in the food processor track here and 2 here. We have 2 at the sawmill, and then we have 4 in the transfer fiddle yard. And then we'd have 2 at the team track here, 4 that can be in the runaround. That's nice because it's the same amount that's in the fiddle yard, so that's helpful. And then we can have 3 more cars here to just either put aside or to have extra cars. This is useful as well because if you need to do a runaround on 1 car coming from the fill yard, you need to put the other 3 cars somewhere else. So you can put those right here. Otherwise, you cannot do a runaround if you clog these tracks up. One thing you want to note out on the leads. So this track, as said, is basically a lead to come into this woodsaw area. The lead needs to be long enough to hold the maximum train length. So now, having explained the design and how this all fits together, let's have a look how to operate this. So now you have your layout design, and it's a good time to check how you're going to operate it. I normally do this in my head, but now I just printed it out for you at home and have this little train. I gave the cars numbers 1, 2, 3, and there's a little locomotive. Locomotive's going to be sitting there. And for this scenario, I'm going to put number 1 here, number 2 and 3 in the fiddle yard. So what needs to happen? This number 1 needs to be picked up and spotted at the fiddle yard, transfer track. Number 2 and 3, 2 has to go here and 3 has to go there. What I would do, there's first off a million ways to solve this, but how I would do it, I would go pick up the cars as such. Number 2 has to go there. It needs to go in the runaround because we need to be on the other side. So first we need to get number 3 out of the way. So I would just park number 3 on this track right here. And then I would park number 2 on the middle track. And then you have to use the runaround to go around number 2. Couple it, and then we go all the way easy straight back into the spot. Now we still need to pick up number 1, so that's a good time to do it as right now. Just go pick it up. Now there is a argument, you could switch the wood sawmill at the same time, take that one with you. If there's a car here that needs to go to the transfer track, I would actually go now and pick it up and just take it all with me as we go like this back into the yard. We'll just use the runaround. I like to pick all my cars first and then spot them. So I picked all the cars, which is number 1 only. So now I'm going to spot this one before I put that one back on the transfer track. Easy peasy, we already know how this goes. We've already been here. Spot it, collect this car and the other cars that you might have in the layout and spot it on the transfer track. This one goes back to the fueling station and it's done. So this is small scenario will probably take you a good 10, maybe even 15 minutes depending on how many rules you have for crossing the road and how you operate your trains. Now you know the basics and how to design a switching layout and how to operate one. I just want to give a final word on adding complexity. There's several ways to do that. You can add transfer tracks, more transfer tracks. You can start working with trackage rights, for example. There's a lot of different real prototypical ways to do that. Another way is to add more of the same. So let me give you an example on that. So in our very first basic example with one industry, you're basically going to need 2 moves to switch this industry. The train backs up, that's 1 move. Spots the car there, turns around and goes back, and that's 2 moves to spot this industry. Not very exciting, so let's add some more. Once upon a day, I actually made and designed this layout. Yes, I actually made it, but be careful what you wish for, as you will see. Because let's say I want to get from this orange point here to this green point here. That alone is 1, 2, 3, 4 moves. And then if I want to get back and I need to do a runaround, well, that's more moves. So in the end, I needed 12 moves just to get from there to there. So this layout lasted a few months, and then I built the layout that I have now. And that was it. That was the video for today. I want to thank you for watching, because you, the viewer, makes this channel for what it is. Don't forget to subscribe and like and donate if you want to. If you want to see more content just like this. Thank you very much. Bye bye.